Hi, I'm Sarah Gyllenstierna, and I'm the director of Hunters on a White Field. It's my first feature film.
I want to ask where you shot specifically, and to add if the woods in Sweden are mostly private property or most public property.
I don't know how much of Sweden's woods are private or public. I mean, I do know because we've had an industry and we still have a large industry of paper and wood industry. So that's a big part, and we have a lot of woods in the north of Sweden. Um, so those are companies, plant woods, replant constantly, and cut and replant. So I would think that's definitely the majority, but I'm not sure about the nature of the ownership of those. Certainly, I know some people privately own woods that are then used for the industry. Um, but we filmed it actually, I mean, so that the majority of that industry is in the north because that's where we have so much forest. But we ended up filming in the southwest of Sweden, where there's a lot of farmland. So it's not as much woods, but we found this great location outside of Gothenburg where there was both woods and there was actually, this was a privately owned, very large area where they had industry for cutting down their woods and replanting, and they had a lot of animals there that they actually did some, controlled hunting of to keep the stock down, but or keep it like within the normal range. So we found all that in the same area, and that's where we decided to film.
I was wondering if you could tell a little bit more about your aesthetic concept of the film. You use close shots and broader shots mixed. Yeah, could you tell what the looks of the film had? What were the most important elements of the look of the film?
I mean, there were in terms of the look. Um, I My first feeling that I had, and I mean, I had been writing the script for a long time, and so it's kind of in the back of your mind, at least for me, because I write the script very visual. I write the shots in more and more as I go, but uh, that's still there's a lot of openness to interpretation, and I worked really closely with the cinematographer. But the first thing I think I said to him was, I felt that we should not film this as a handheld film. And what I mean by that, I mean, there are a few shots in the film that are handheld, but by and large, it's not handheld. And I didn't, I wanted to, I can't really say why, but I just felt this is what I saw in my mind, that it was more of a, I wanted to be able to take in the landscape. I wanted to, for sure, move the camera, but not, not make it all static tableaus. But I didn't want those moves to have that feel of here's, this shaky kind of moving like this, uh, which is a feeling of, some person kind of breathing down your neck kind of thing. And I feel part of it is for me a reaction, like I think I wanted to go back to, when I first fell in love with film, this was not, it was not common, it's before Dogma, so it's before everyone started to film handheld. And I feel like a lot of independent, both European and American films and TV shows for sure. In Sweden, I feel like TV shows for years now they're all handheld. And it's extremely rare to see feature films or TV shows that are not majority handheld. So that was something that I wanted to just maybe also react against that, because I've gotten a little tired of that aesthetic. And I felt, and it can be fun to go into something where it can feel liberating and more exciting, I think, to go against when everyone starts doing a certain aesthetic thing. to not do that, because then you feel like, oh, you're kind of discovering things anew in a way. But we quickly, so that was an idea, and the DP was really excited about that because he had mostly shot handheld. He's actually very good at handheld, but now he had to do something else, so that was fun for him. Um, but then we started talking about, I was like, well, I don't really want it to be these static tableaus either. So how are we going to move the camera? Well, we quickly found out from the budget side that we could not afford to have any grips on the film. So that ruled out dolly. So now we can't move the camera with dolly. We now started talking about zoom lenses. And that was a very challenge for me to overcome mentally, because I had had this bias against zoom lenses. I don't know, I had to be convinced by the DP. And it was fun because then we started together to look at, I mean, of course I went back to old Kubrick films, who has of course used zoom in a super great way, but it's very stylized. So I had to find some other films, good references, to see, oh, there are quite a different few different ways of using zoom in a very intentional way. And I'm telling you, we would joke about it, me and the DP, all the time during the shoot, because I totally fell in love with the Zoom. And I used to say I hate Zoom, and now I love it. So that was a lot of fun. And definitely, of course, other than the zoom, I mean, we do have a lot of just very wide, static shots and close-ups. And I mean, we worked really intentionally. We had storyboarded a lot. I storyboarded a lot before I started working with the DP, and then he and I went through them together as we location scouted. And it was wonderful, in that landscape, to do that. And then, I mean, I would say the other big influence for me was, or inspiration, I should say, was, I created a lookbook early on that I gave to the DP and the production designer, and it had a lot. It had some nature photographs, but the rest was mainly Francis Bacon paintings. So I would say Francis Bacon was a big inspiration in terms of trying to get across to them what I wanted the tone to be. I mean, his use of color was a big influence, and then his tone, because there is of course, a realism to his paintings, but it's also completely grotesque and very horrific. So there's a darkness and a sense of horror and a sense of mystery, because you don't really know what's going on, but you're feeling a lot. And there could be very stark. There doesn't, it was just a big influence for me. I looked at them and I felt like this is kind of what I want the film to be. I could take like 10 Francis Bacon paintings and that's the film. And I don't know if everyone else totally got, but I think it all, at least everybody internalized some part of that, whether it was the colors or of course, not really the framing, nothing so literal. Other than colors, it was more ephemeral in terms of the feeling you're getting with these paintings.
Very important is the soundtrack of the film. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about how you developed the soundtrack?
Yeah, I mean, I love sound in film. I love music, and I, of course, a lot of times they overlap a lot, and they work together. But I really had, from the beginning, a strong sense that I want to have a classic score, a composed score, and um, and when I say classic, I mean really trying to find, I not to lean away from or shy away from, music. Like, here we hear that there's a score. It's not that sense of trying to, hide the score, or like, oh, you shouldn't feel that there's music in the film. I mean, look, I love film. So there's so many, I can watch a film and be like, this is amazing. There hasn't been music in the whole way, and it's an hour in. I'm fascinated with everyone's solutions. For each film, there's going to be different solutions. So I felt, for this film, I thought that was the way to go. And so it was exciting also to be able to work with a composer. Um, and to really go for, I mean, at first we really talked at the beginning, we really talked about sounds in the music that would feel of the forest. So we had a lot of talking about that, not having instrumentation that would really stick out. My main thing was, I just told him from the beginning, just like with the I don't want handheld, with him, with the composer, I said, I just know I don't want piano. I don't think this score can be piano. Okay. And then we talked a little bit, we tried to dig into why. And I mean, he had felt from the beginning when he read the script, which he had told me before I said the piano, that he felt it should feel like it's the forest. So those two visions fit anyway. And we landed on, this flute, the main, I mean, I guess one of the main themes that's the most recurring, has flute sounds, and it really felt right. And then I just think he did a beautiful job. And we, we I really encouraged him to lean into, uh trying to catch a feeling, and not, pushing it sometimes, and not being afraid of sort of going really out there sometimes in terms of the score. I mean, for me, one of the inspirations, I mean, just mentioning it, not that we were trying to go for that sound, because you can't, but just as an inspiration in terms of how a composer and a director work together, it's Angelo Badalamenti and David Lynch. You know, I can't imagine David Lynch's films without Badalamenti's music. They are really, and I can't really imagine. I mean, I watched some films that Badalamenti scored that weren't David Lynch films, just to get the sense. And it's like, oh, it's not really Badalamenti music. It goes with David Lynch's films. They just are together, and they're so integral to each other, like creating that tone and that feeling. And so it was really about, but that's another example of music that's really, it's music, it's orchestral. And so it was fantastic. I mean, we didn't have an orchestra. Ola, the composer, did everything himself. Uh, but he did a beautiful job, and I still feel like you get a sense of the orchestral and sound design, which we had a fantastic sound designer, and that's really important to the film. Once the animals disappear, uh, because it has this before and after, before the animals disappear and then after the animals disappear, how the sound landscape changes uh, in the film. And of course, that affected the music as well, because once the animals disappear, the sounds are so minimal. Then every time the music comes in, it's heightened in a different way. And I mean, he did an amazing job. It was a lot about layering in, figuring out how much animal sound can we have, and do we need to have, to really make the viewer aware, the listener aware subconsciously, that there is a difference. Because when we weren't able to, that was not something that we could visually show. It really hinged on the sound design, because I couldn't, you're not going to see animals, pop in and out throughout the film. So you had to feel that there was a difference, and that comes through the sound. I had thought, because I've only made short films before, I thought that and because my background is film production, I have the least experience with editing, other than editing, my own shorts. And so I thought that that would be a challenge, to sit in an edit room week after week after week. And I was actually surprised by how much I loved it. I had prepared myself, oh, I'm going to be sick of it. I'm going to feel like I can't watch this another time. I can't see anymore and all that. And it was a thrilling thing. Maybe partly actually because we had very compressed edit schedule, again because of the low budget. Um, I went into it was like a rush of adrenaline every day. It was like, okay, we got to get through these scenes, and it was exciting. Now, of course, part of what was exciting was because I was very happy with the actors. Again, it's all about, and then now you're sitting staring at them for weeks and weeks again, And of course, that would probably not be very thrilling if you were unhappy or kind of felt that there were problems, but it was a joy. And at this point, before I would have said, oh, I definitely prefer filming to editing. Now I feel like it's equal. It's equally exciting. Writing is the most difficult for me. It's the being alone and getting into your own head. And then I feel like I get entangled. And that's the most challenging, I feel. It's working in those other, because in the other two stages, you're working with others and you're working off of others. And that's when it happens. That's when it feels exciting.
The film already premiered. You had your screening also at Tribeca. Um, the reactions from the audience, were was there something that surprised you particularly, or that you particularly appreciated?
I mean, I don't know if anything, I'm trying to think if anything surprised me. Probably somebody, there were some surprises. I have to think of an example. I think what made me the happiest was that there were actually quite, there were a few different interpretations of what the film was really like, what it was really saying. There were a few kind of strongest contenders for that, and that made me really happy that it inspired some people told me that they, after the film, they had gone as a group, they all disagreed what it was really trying to say. And I really like that, because they had talked about it and they had said, no, it's definitely this. And the other people had said, no, it's definitely that. That excited me, because I feel like if people were actually, you know, at all wanting to talk about it and felt that it was up in the air, I think that that's great. Of course, there can be, many fantastic films feel pretty clear what they're about and what they really are saying, and they are still feel very complex and layered. That's like the masterpieces that can be achieved. But I also can like films that I look at them and I say, oh, I really feel that this film is about this, and my friend says, really, I think it's something else. Then we have a discussion, and then I come to see, oh, I didn't see that layer, and that's when maybe a film, I mean, this was a little bit of a story where I thought, and the producers, we thought we were going for some different things. Like I sort of mentioned to you also, that the social relationship group thing. And then there's a thing more about, you know, the almost philosophical, but also somewhat psychological reaction of hunters to killing and our place in nature and our inner kind of urges. What are they? What's in our nature? We knew that it had some different things like that, but it was fun to see that people felt strongly about either one. And some people said, for example, we had some people who said, oh, this is such a, this hunting theme, and how what we're doing to nature, it's really about that. And they felt so strongly about that, and they didn't at all think that the social relationship thing was didn't mean much to them during the film. And others who said the complete opposite, pretty much, who said, oh, it's all about, it's really about these men and how they're affecting each other in these relationships. And, the hunting thing, that, the nature, yeah, it's there. It's a background. So that I really liked that, because then I felt like, well, we got a few different things out of it, so to speak.
Do you already have new ideas, next ideas in mind?
Yes. My problem is now actually deciding on which one to focus on in depth, because I've started on a few different ideas, and I'm trying to, and they take place in different countries, a couple of ideas that are in the United States, and a few ideas in Europe. And I don't know, I feel splintered. I have to like do some kind of meditation course to decide to land. I keep thinking I'm gonna wake up one day and I'm gonna know, but I don't know which one yet.
will you still write something that has a little bit of a fantastic twist, or
I can tell you one of my ideas is a science fiction. Uh, and the other ideas that I have, that's the only one. That's a fantastic, yeah. And actually, right now, that's the one I'm leaning towards. I think I had that idea early on, and then I stepped away from it because I thought, I mean, unfortunately, and I try to, I struggle with this in my own mind. I wish somebody could help me reach a resolution. But unfortunately, I have a sensor in my head that says, oh, I come up with an idea, and then I have the voice that goes, how much is this going to cost? Oh, this is going to be a high budget. Are you going to be able to get to direct a high budget? But so I had stepped away from it because I thought that seems way too big. But now I actually recently talked to someone in the film business who said, no, no, no. If it's good enough, now with this film you've shown you can direct, it's not going to be impossible. So I'm leaning towards actually going into that one now. And it would be fun. I mean, I've never attempted, I mean, this is of course a somewhat Hunters on a Whitefield feels like it's not straight genre, but it's on the borderland somehow. But this would be, I mean, it's science fiction, so it would be, it's about that creating the world. I keep constantly thinking about all the, the world. It's a challenge, but it's also fun.